Welcome to the People Teaching People podcast. Joining me on the podcast is Anila Umar Lee Yuen. Anila is the President and Chief Executive Officer of the Center for Newcomers in Calgary. She has 28 years of experience in the settlement sector. Beyond traditional settlement services, Anila has spearheaded programming to include volunteer-led refugee supports, indigenous education for newcomers, LGBTQ plus supports, domestic violence, homeless and mental health support services, broadened vulnerable youth programming, and social venture opportunities. Anila was the Civil Society Chair for the Calgary COVID Care Table from December 2020 to August 2021, which assisted more than 30,000 vulnerable Calgarians during the pandemic, leading to a vaccination rate of 99% for Northeast Calgary. Anila continues to lead the Calgary Sector Collaborative Transformation as the chair of the Calgary Newcomers Collaborative. Anila's current volunteer positions include chair of AG Media at the Calgary Stampede, co-chair of Arts and Heritage Grant Committee at the Calgary Foundation, moderator for a Calgary Facebook gardening group with 3,000 plus members, ambassador with Calgary Comic Expo, United Way Impact speaker, settlement sector representative on the Calgary Local Immigration Partnership, past president at Rotary Club Millennium in Calgary, and panelist with CBC Radio Calgary's Unconventional panel. Anila also spends much of her time mentoring youth and young adults and taking care of the elders in her life. Anila holds a BSc with honors in psychology, specifically behavioral neuroscience, and a BSc in biological sciences from the University of Calgary, as well as an MBA with distinction from Keller Graduate School of Management. She is an alumnus of the U.S. State Department's International Visitor Leadership Program and is a featured author in the International Museum of Women's Anthology, Imagining Ourselves, Global Voices from a New Generation of Women. Her numerous awards for her contributions to her community include the Governor General's Award in commemoration of the person's case, the University of Calgary's Alumni Arch Award, Top 40 Under 40 in Calgary, Women of Inspiration, Top 25 Women of Influence in Canada, and the Top 100 Most Powerful Women in Canada. For fun, Anila is an avid gardener, a martial arts student, and a sci-fi fantasy cosplayer. She lives in Rocky View County with her husband, Stefan, and their puppy named Seth. They are the proud godparents of triplet boys and a little girl. Thank you so much for joining me, Anila.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
So, where I wanted to start off with our conversation is to learn more about you and your story and what led you into the role that you're doing now as the President and Chief Executive Officer of the Center for Newcomers in Calgary.
Okay. So, so I have been now with the Center for Newcomers as the CEO and president for 7 years. I'm like in my 8th year, I think it is right now. And this is something that I've always actually wanted to do. It was really on my list of goals that I had since I was about 20 years old. One of the things that I knew that I wanted to do was I wanted to either be the CEO of the Center for Newcomers or the CEO of the Calgary Immigrant Women's Association. So, it was really nice to be able to 7 years ago take the helm here and be able to do this. And I think the reason why I wanted to do this was because, first of all, my parents were immigrants. They came from India. My entire family started arriving in the 1960s. And was very acutely aware of all of the struggles of newcomers and loss of credentials, credential recognition, loss of status, having to create new social circles, and even just the difference in culture between your own children and yourselves, right? and how that can be quite traumatic for children and also traumatic for the parents who just don't understand why it's so difficult to connect with their kids anymore, right? And their kids are coming from a new culture and being exposed to new ways of being and new thinking and things like that. And so I've always kind of worked with youth, and refugee kids is where my heart really always has stayed. And so it was nice to be able to come back and be able to serve the community in this way.
Well, it's exciting that this was your goal and now you
Mhm.
are living that goal. That is
Yes.
incredible. And for the past 7 years, so congratulations. Heading into
Thank you.
8. Now, I was doing some looking around the website for the Center for Newcomers. First of all, it's absolutely beautiful, and the stories shared there are absolutely beautiful. And I specifically was looking at the vision. And when I was reading it, it actually had me sort of take a moment of pause. So I'll just share it quickly now for people who are listening. So, the Center for Newcomers imagines a community that values diversity, in which people of all backgrounds find and create opportunities to fulfill their dreams and participate fully as citizens. So, you mentioned some of the challenges people face in coming to Canada. And in the work being done towards this vision, I also read on the website that the services being offered are oversubscribed. And it is really reflecting the continuing increase in the flow of newcomers to Calgary and to the Center for Newcomers. So, what is the current state of immigration here in Canada?
Well, I think the government, and it really doesn't matter whether it's a liberal government or it's a conservative government, right? As the federal government and as Canada, I think we understand the value of immigration. We know that almost 100% of our labor market growth and our population growth are attributed to newcomers. Without immigration, we wouldn't have any population growth, and we certainly wouldn't have any labor market growth. So, economically, and even just for the sustainability of our country, it's important to have immigration. So, so whoever the government is in power right now, it happens to be the Liberals, are work really hard in terms of providing immigration numbers to have a steady stream of newcomers being able to come to Canada. What we don't account for, of course, is war. We don't account for any acts of God, like major, floods or any of those other kind of things that might, cause any kind of problems. So that's where a number of our issues actually are coming from. And so we have a huge increase in Afghan refugees currently, and a huge increase of people coming from the Ukraine. Now, the government doesn't refer to them as refugees. They're called temporary residents because they are supposed to go back to the Ukraine when it's safe to do so. But in all aspects of their lives, they are effectively refugees. The only difference is they are coming here without any type of benefits or supports the way refugees would. So they really need to be self sufficient really quickly. And the numbers are beyond anything we've ever seen before. So it's a large influx of people that are coming into here. And that has really caused a big issue in the system in terms of we just don't have the resources to be able to meet the needs of the community in a timely manner. And as such, we've been reaching out to the rest of the community. We've been reaching out to, places of worship, different groups that are able to provide us with some funding and with some sponsorship so that we can actually get some of these most vulnerable groups, including our Afghan women and our Ukrainian women, into programming very quickly.
Yeah, there has been a lot going on in our world. And um, even in my own children's schools, we've been seeing some new faces of kiddos coming from both Ukraine and Afghanistan. And um, I can't imagine the situation that they've left in coming here, and to have an organization and or a number of organizations coming together to find those creative solutions and to provide that support and getting them settled here in Canada is amazing. Now, the other thing that I was blown away by when I was exploring the Center for Newcomers website are all the opportunities to learn.
Mhm.
I was looking and seeing that there are programs for youth and classes on language and literacy and parenting and money management, computer literacy, returning to work, and then also workshops on the exploration of diversity and inclusion, cultural competency training, and like the list goes on and on. I was absolutely blown away. And I'd love to get your thoughts on how teaching and learning are an integral part of the important work happening at the Center for Newcomers.
Absolutely. I think regardless of whether you're a newcomer or you're born here or, wherever you happen to come from, lifelong learning is so important and integral to just being human, right? To being able to fully take advantage of everything in our society and our community and to really actively participate. And the ability to provide educational opportunities not only for newcomers but for the community to learn about newcomers and to learn about social issues, especially systemic discrimination. We do a lot of workshops around cultural competency, cultural humility, anti-racism. What it is like to be LGBT plus. What does that look like in terms of having all of these stacked on other needs or equity kind of needs around being maybe you are a person of color and you're a woman and you belong to the LGBT plus community and you're a refugee. What does that look like, and how do people navigate that, and how do we as community members help people feel included and feel like they belong, right? Because it's one thing to say, well, no, we're a barrier free society, but it's another to really take that as active learning, as always trying to learn ourselves in terms of learning about people that may be different than ourselves, and how do we create spaces and places within our own homes, within our own schools, within our own grocery stores, even all the places that we're going to be, where people can feel like they belong, and lifelong learning education, the ability to provide those in a barrier free way, free, so that anybody can access them, is extremely important.
And so, for the learning opportunities that you offer, are they online, in person, combination of both? What's sort of the design for those opportunities?
Uh, Both. So we do offer online. We offer hybrid models, and then we also offer in person here at the center or within the community. Right. So it could be, say, a community group or a church group or a school. I always love going to schools and talking to children and talking to post secondary students even around the work that we do, and getting to hear from typically young people, right, around their thoughts on things, and it's a real learning opportunity for me, right, because kids just have a way of expressing things and saying things that just make everything so simple, and I think as adults we complicate things a lot.
I agree. They also have the best questions.
Yes, definitely.
And a lot of learning comes from those questions as well. But yeah, absolutely a great way and place to learn for sure. Now, I myself was born and raised in Calgary. I was born in Edmonton, actually. I moved to Calgary when I was 2. But
Mhm.
I can't imagine what the experience of being a newcomer to Canada would be like. So what would be some of the, like you've mentioned some of the barriers, but what would be some of the key barriers that people experience and face when they come to Canada?
I think it's really interesting because I think there's a lot of kind of systemic issues that are unconscious and that we don't even realize, right? As Canadians, that we what that will do, right? And so when people arrive in Canada, you can expect that for the most part, they speak English or French fluently, right? 93% are speaking English or French fluently because they're coming under the economic class. It's typically their family members or refugees that don't speak English. So they're coming with a certain level of an ability to communicate. But they're also coming for a variety of reasons, right? And all of them are for a better lifestyle, right? For a better way of life. That could be for more freedom, that could be for more opportunities, more education opportunities, better quality of life for their kids, all of those different things. And in doing that, I always say to people, imagine like the most foreign place to you that you could think of, right? And it's going to be different for different people, right? So for me, I think about, I visited both Saudi Arabia and I visited China, and they were both extremely different cultures for me than I'm used to, right? And I don't speak the language in either of those places. And even as a tourist, navigating those places and spaces was really difficult for me. So if you imagine, having to go to that place, and even if you speak the language, but you don't have any of your friends there, none of your family is there, you've left them behind, and if you've got kids, then your kids are all upset because they've left everybody and everything they knew. They have to learn a new system, and you're consistently learning new systems. You're learning the system of enrolling your kids in school. You're learning workplace culture in Canada, right? You're learning even entertainment. Like, what do people do to entertain? Or, you might have been used to going to your own church or, place of worship in your own, country of origin. And it might be the same faith, same denomination, but things might be different in terms of how you do them here. What time mass might be, or what language it's done in, or what the expectations are in terms of just like social interactions. All of those things can really cause a lot of anxiety and a lot of distress because there's such big changes, right? And um, and so so having community members, just all of us, Canadians, Calgarians, in the system, um, being welcoming and being patient and being curious and wanting to include people, having our kids include their kids in activities and participating. And what better way for children to learn about other cultures and other ways of being than by making friends with other children, and that are new to Canada, and asking them, what do you do, what do you eat at home, what are the kind of things that you did back in, what games did you play, maybe learn something new. That's where I think it's really difficult for people. It's really navigating systems and understanding systems when you've been a successful adult in your home country for so many years, navigating all these systems, and it took you your entire life to learn all of this, and you had mentors or parents or teachers or whoever else that helped you there, and now you're kind of feeling like you're on your own. It can be really difficult.
Oh, I think about myself traveling, and as you said, I love how you spoke of or the idea of picturing yourself going to a country where it's completely new and different. And yeah, it makes me think about some of the travel experiences that we had, but then knowing that that was a short-term thing and it
Mhm.
wasn't a long-term thing, and it was more of a holiday exploratory thing and not a day-to-day thing where I'm having to think about all the, like, the schooling, the work, and all the systems, as you said. And I appreciate you too sharing kind of the mutual responsibility in the learning, and how we as a community can also be better in being curious and supportive and welcoming, and being a resource for people that are coming to help them navigate all the crazy systems that we have here and all the different ways that we do things. So, with the current barriers and challenges that newcomers face, what changes need to happen and why?
You know, Um, the biggest change that we really need to see is in credential recognition for newcomers, right? Uh, Right now, the federal government and the province allow people to come into the country based on the type of skills they have, the education they have, the background they have, the experience they have in those jobs and those positions. And the positions that they allow in are the ones that we have vacancies in. So we really need people to fill those positions. So if it's good enough for our federal and provincial governments, it should be good enough for all of us in terms of their ability to actually work in those fields. But what happens is that we, as Calgarians, as Canadians, as Albertans, we gatekeep. sometimes consciously, and mostly subconsciously, unconsciously, right? Where we're looking through resumes and we're like, oh, I don't know what that university is, or I don't know where that's from. So I'm going to just set that aside, right? Or I don't know how to pronounce that name, so I'm just going to set that aside. And like I said, more often than not, it's unconscious, which is why the education and learning is so important, so that we remember not to do those things. We're very conscious of making sure that we're not just putting resumes aside because we don't understand them, right? And what I mean by we don't understand them is that we don't know where that university is. It's as easy as Googling it to be like, oh, this is a legitimate university, and the U of C or Mount Royal University actually recognizes its credentials. Makes sense. That's why they're here, right? And giving people that opportunity and that chance. I think that that's the biggest piece. Is we know that we have lots of labor shortages. So being able to provide those opportunities and those chances for people um, to actually interview for positions, and then providing them those positions, because what ends up happening is then we have a very high skill workforce, right? A large number of people that are taking up positions in lower skilled or no skill needed jobs. And then what that ends up doing is that then ends up displacing our youth that typically would take those jobs, right? Like, I tell everyone I was a proud sandwich artist. When I was a teenager, I worked at Subway, right? I had friends that worked at McDonald's and other places, the Tim Hortons and things like that. But if you look now, majority of our, some of our fast food type places are, we have newcomers that are in those positions. And if you were to ask those newcomers, they're very highly skilled people. They have post-secondary education in a variety of different skill sets and different occupations that we actually need to be filled. But we as a society are either consciously or unconsciously not allowing them to work in those positions, right? And so it has larger societal ramifications, right? Including not then having opportunities for our youth to be able to learn the skill set that they need, right? Because if you or I are an employer, are we going to hire the very stable, immigrant person who's going to show up on time, is going to work, be grateful for the job, and, do things really perfectly? Or are we going to hire somebody that, like, 17-year-old Anila, that may or may not show up for work because I partied the night before, right? Which isn't all, I'm just talking about my, teenage life. It's not all teenagers, but I mean, that's something that I think we really need to look at in terms of full societal ramifications. And from a purely economic standpoint, you have more people working in higher paying jobs that are sustainable. You have people then have actual health benefits, are actually taking time off, they're healthier, and so the society as a whole isn't using our health system as much. And also there's more taxpayer dollars going back into the system to build our infrastructure as well, right? So these are all types of things that based on our own unconscious bias are having a huge impact on our overall quality of life for you and me, not only our newcomers.
Yeah. And it definitely seems like a shift that if people were recognizing those unconscious biases and doing some learning and education of themselves and the situation, that things could change and relatively quickly. So, where does that change need to start, do you feel? Or has it started? Is there some momentum growing with it?
So, that's the place where I think, from the federal government perspective, they're doing it. From the provincial level, over the course of the last 3 or 4 years, there's been bills that have come into play in Alberta that are designed to have the associations, right, the professional bodies, really look at newcomer credentials and ensure that those credentials are actually being recognized. So I think that we're making some good strides in those places. Where I said, where I think, like I said previously, we need to do a lot more, and I don't think there's a lot of momentum towards that, is just in individuals, right? People that are hiring managers, people that are in positions of power to hire people and to really look past their own, learnings and what they know, to take a chance on people and hire people that maybe they don't know anything about their culture or their background or whatever else, but they do have the skill set.
Yeah. And are these conversations that the Center for Newcomers and yourself and people working at your organization are having with kids? Because I find children are fantastic at bringing up topics of discussion and sort of challenging parents a little bit on some of their thoughts and ideas. I find especially our youngest comes home with all kinds of questions about the ways we do things and how we might do things better.
For us, it's one of those things we would love to have audiences with kids and being able to talk about these things all the time.
Yeah.
But really, we wait for an invitation. And maybe
Okay.
that's something we should stop doing, right? Maybe we should send an invitation saying that we can come and have these conversations. I'm going next week, and I'm actually really excited because it's going to be Valentine's Day. So I'm going to a school to talk to grade 9 students. Right, I'm going to do 3 different classes because their curriculum, they're doing their unit on immigration at that point, right? So being able to have those conversations, I think, with young people is extremely important. And I think, to your point, we should be doing more outreach to the schools, saying that we are available to have these conversations and that we would like to be able to meet with people, to meet with the kids and be able to really talk about those and answer any of the questions that they may have.
Yeah,
Right?
absolutely. Well, I'm going to be putting in a plug to my husband, who is an elementary school principal. So there you go. There's one.
Okay, I would love to come and visit his school anytime.
I will let him know. Thank you. Now, I want to ask you some questions about you and yourself. And thinking back to growing up or even recently, who might be a favorite teacher or what is a really impactful learning experience that you've had?
For me, the I think back to a lot of teachers, but that just believed in me, that were willing to listen to me when I had any needs or when I had any issues. And I actually want to bring up 2 of them. One is a story about a friend of mine, which had a big impact for me just watching from the outside in. And the other is what happened to me myself. So when we were in junior high at Sir John A. Macdonald Junior High School here in Calgary, we had a math teacher, and his name was Mr. Kang, and he was from Korea. And he had a really thick accent, and he was very strict. And he said that he was strict because he grew up under Japanese occupation. And my best friend was terrible at math, terrible at math, and self-professed terrible at math. And she would say this all the time: I can't do it, I can't do it, I can't do it. And he one day got so visibly angry at her saying I can't do it, that he said to her, "You are not leaving this desk, and you are going to stay here all day until you do it." And everybody else got dismissed and we left. And I'm thinking, I need to stay because this is looking scary. But she was in tears and she was staying, and the whole thing. And um he afterwards, I asked her what happened, and she said he was very kind and very gentle. And he said, "I'm not angry at you. I'm angry with whoever adult in your life made you believe that you weren't smart enough to do this,
Mhm.
because you are, and you can do this. And what do you need for me to help you?" She ended up acing math, and now she leads nurses, in emergency rooms across our city. She teaches, she's doing her, did her master's. She won all these bursaries as we were growing up for all of this work that she did. And math never held her back, because Mr. Kang was so angry at whoever adults had told her that she couldn't do it. And it's stayed in my life because um, that's all we need.
Mhm.
We need one adult that just doesn't believe we're stupid,
Yeah.
that just believes in us, right? And for me, similarly, when I was in university, I had a TA, Mr. Shivji, and he was my physics TA. And I really wasn't sure what I could do. And, if I could do it, and he helped. But what was more important was in university, I had been diagnosed with chronic depression and things were really hard at the time. And he would bring me lunch and he'd say, look, or he would give me stuff to eat, and he would just ask me how I'm doing, and just, say, you're, and tell me that I'm brave, tell me that I can still do it, and that this, like, my diagnosis isn't the end of the world and I'm going to be perfectly fine. And 2 months ago, I was privileged enough to be in the audience as one of his guests 25 years later, to watch him receive the Queen's Jubilee Medal for his work in community service and volunteerism. You know, and again, it's teachers like that care above and beyond whatever subject it is. They see you as a person. And even if the entire world, at least you feel like the entire world is telling you you can't do it and you're not good enough, they are there to say, I don't really care what anyone else thinks. I don't even actually care what you think right now. I know better, and I know that you can do this, and I know that you are worth it. And that made the difference to me, and it made the difference to my best friend.
Those are two incredible stories, and they both sound like two incredible teachers who really made both yourself and your friend feel seen and heard and understood.
Mhm.
And there definitely are those special people out there, those teachers that just have that magic and that real sense of the importance of relationship and connecting with the people that they're supporting. Oh, and I'm so glad you had that full circle moment. That must have been an incredible day.
Oh, when Mr. Shivji called me, I saw it coming up, and and I answered the phone, and he says, I'd like to invite you to an event. I get 10 spots and my family is coming, and I'd like you to be amongst my family members. And it just made my entire week, like, to be able to go and to see that, and he tells me all the time how proud he is of the work that I do at the center, and the woman that I've become, and all of those different types of things. And so to have a mentor for 25 years that was just, he just believed in me, and he continues to believe in me, is such a blessing in my life.
Such an incredible blessing. Wow. I love that story. Thank you so much for sharing that. Now, speaking of all that you've accomplished and in having that incredible support from a mentor for 25 years, which is amazing, you've had so many incredible opportunities and experiences and successes and recognition. So, when you look back at your journey so far, what is something that you're the most proud of?
I am the most proud of the work that we were able to do over COVID. I think it was and continues to be an honor of my lifetime to serve our community the way we did. Um, when COVID first hit, Northeast Calgary had the highest number of COVID cases and the lowest vaccine uptake once we started being able to do vaccines. And to be able to participate as the chair and lead the community response with all of the different social services agencies, with so many different friends, other CEOs come together. And we were able to feed 50,000 Calgarians with culturally comforting food hampers. We were able to go from the highest rate of COVID to the lowest cases of COVID, and the lowest uptake of vaccine to the highest uptake of vaccine in the country. You know, and so and we did that as a collaborative, as a community response. 250 organizations working together. It was the honor of a lifetime to be the chair of that. I think I lived, breathed, worked that. I was doing 14 hours days, 7 days a week in terms of ensuring that everything was where it needed to be, and that, ensuring people maintained their housing, that they didn't lose their homes because they weren't able to work, and doing the advocacy and that kind of work. I'm the most proud of that. I'm the most proud of how community members came together collectively and how we were able to support some of the most vulnerable people in our city.
That is incredible. And to have a leadership role in that journey and really all those community stakeholders and partners coming together to make that all happen is wonderful. So, congratulations for
Thank you.
that. Now, I have a few rapid fire questions for you.
Sure.
Okay, so first one is, what is something that you would love to learn about or something that you would love to learn to do?
Oh, there's a whole bunch of things on my list. I want to learn to play the guitar. I'm not very good at it. I'd love to learn to speak Turkish fluently. Right now, I kind of understand about one third of it. And I'd love to go to Konya, where Jalaluddin Rumi, the Sufi master and poet, is buried. So those are things that I'd love to do.
That's a great list. What is a place that is at the top of your travel bucket list?
Konya,
Okay.
definitely. I really, I've been able to go for pilgrimage to Saudi Arabia as a Muslim woman, and it was really important for me to do. And the only other place that I'd really like to go is I'd like to be able to pay homage to Master Rumi and be able to pray at his grave.
What is a book, podcast, movie, or TV show that you've enjoyed recently?
I really enjoyed The Peripheral. It's a TV show and it's also a book. And my husband and I are really into sci-fi and fantasy, and this is post-apocalyptic kind of work. But I really enjoyed the fact that the lead is a woman. I'm really enjoying how much more we're seeing in this genre where women and female characters and queer characters are taking the lead, which I think is extremely important. Diverse color, like people of color, all kinds of different diversity is happening. And I really enjoyed just being able to see a really kind of intelligent sci-fi drama unfold with a woman as the lead.
I'll have to check that one out. Thank you. And if you could sit down and have a conversation with someone that you would love to learn from, who would it be and why?
I would. Do they have to be alive?
No,
Oh,
whatever you would like. Yeah,
yeah.
no rules.
These days, I think it would really be Maya Angelou. And because I'm really interested in how she was able to consistently and successfully and eloquently speak about her own life, with so many autobiographies that she wrote. And she's everybody quotes her, in terms of inspirational quotes. But you know uh, I've been reading through some of her books more recently, and just she talks about ordinary things, but in ways that everybody can understand, and how they've had an impact on her. So I'd love to just hear from her in terms of how she navigated all of that, and how she navigated the spotlight and what that looked like.
That would certainly be an incredible conversation. Now, education really plays such a role in everything that we do. So, how we work, live, play, and explore. So, I'm wondering if you have any final thoughts or words of wisdom to empower or support people on their own learning journeys.
Oh, I think we have to fight for our education, right? I think that education isn't passive, that we need to consistently be looking at how we can learn and grow and improve ourselves. And we, we're in a digital age where there's so many free courses from Harvard and Cornell and McGill, all of these Ivy League schools, that you can learn from renowned people from all over the world in multiple different languages. So consistently just going out there and seeking and especially meeting people that are different than you and asking questions, right? If you're a certain political stripe and you've got a person that is like your complete enemy, why not ask them for, coffee and learn about them? You might learn something about yourself, right? And be curious, ask people questions.
I love that so much. I'm actually reading a book right now called Think Again: The Power of Knowing What You Don't Know by organizational psychologist Adam Grant. And it's so much about that, how we tend to hang out with the same sort of group of people.
Mhm.
And if we connect with people that think about things in a different way and we ask a lot of questions and we're more curious, it can really help to open our minds, but also help us to understand each other better. So I appreciate
Definitely.
your wisdom there. Anila, thank you so much for sharing your time and your story and all your words of wisdom with us today. If our listeners want to learn more about you and the Center for Newcomers, where are the best places to get more information and find out more?
So our website is centerfornewcomers.ca, and center is spelled RE. So you can go to centerfornewcomers.ca. You can also find me personally and the Center for Newcomers on LinkedIn, on Twitter, Instagram. We're publicly available on all of those platforms.
So we can find you in all the places.
All the places.
All the places. Thank you so much for joining me, Anila. It was great to chat with you and to learn from you.
Thank you. I had such a great time.